Hey everyone, welcome back in. Betsperts Golf here for the 2024 US Open Pinehurst #2. Really excited about this one. Andy, what's going on? How are we doing today?
Yeah, and every other iteration of the usage of that phrase, number two means bad. Like, oh, I took a big old number two on that.
It's true.
But no, number two is the best. If anyone doesn't know about the Pinehurst Resort, it's a public course. You can just go play there. It ain't free, that's for sure, but
Mm.
you can go play. And there's I think besides 210 is a favorite of people's. I don't know. Have you ever played it?
I've never been to Pinehurst Resort. I heard 7 is nice as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, never.
A lot of places do names like, oh, this is the red course or the black, like Bethpage Black, or they name it after something. They just numbered these, which is fine too, because it's a really, really nice course. This is a true US Open course, a true test. I mean, we've already seen some quotes, we've already seen some clips, we've seen the gorse, we've seen the weeds, we've seen the stuff that is replacing the rough, we've seen the upside down saucers, we've heard, we've been through some of the 2014 stuff, and yeah, we'll get into all that today. We'll talk about the course, we'll talk about some key stats, we'll build a model, talk about some guys we like, we'll talk about the odds, just the field, one tournament this week, and
No field.
I don't. Do you have any quick memorial takes? I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, even though I love the tournament. I had a wedding, and again, it was a wedding where my daughter was in it. So all day Friday was fucked for me too, because we had rehearsal, and then all day Saturday, and then Sunday I'm hungover because I'm 40. So I didn't really watch golf Friday, Saturday, and then by Sunday it wasn't like boring, but there wasn't like oh, maybe he's going to screw it up, even though it's the course. It's the kind of course where, and boy, I'm not going to be the first one this week to like dog on Valhalla. I feel like we might be doing this for the rest of the year, but it's the antithesis of the closing stretch there, where it's just like, oh, like as long as he doesn't swing left-handed, he should just win this. This is boring. This is a boring stretch. Like good courses, good tough courses like Muirfield, like what we have this week, they are, that's the sort of thing that happens down the stretch. Like every shot is, what is he going to do here? How's he going to stay out of trouble? How's he going to protect this lead? But it's Scotty, and it's such a nice setup for him. And I didn't feel like there was a ton of doubt. So not the most exciting Sunday, but really nice win for him. That's 5 in the year. He's made like $25 million. He won a tournament that's outside of April. So, I mean, good for him. Colin had a nice showing, a couple other nice, really nice showing for Hadwin, obviously, all things considered. And a tournament I really enjoy. And hopefully there's not going to be a wedding next year. I'm going to get to watch the whole thing next time.
Maybe they move it back to Memorial Day weekend too. Who knows? But yeah, I mean,
this makes sense.
Great tournament. It should have. This is guy. We touched on this, I think, a little bit last week. If we didn't have U.S. Open right on the back of it, we'd probably give it a little bit more bandwidth today and touch on and highlight some of the things that that went down there and deserves that type of credit. That it is that type of golf course. It is, I think, what Pinehurst 2 is. The ask is very different, but in terms of just demanding golf shots, having to strategically think your way through things, it is I think a nice lead into a U.S. Open. I'm not sure you could say the same for Live Houston. I don't know how much of that you took in. I know you dug in there, but probably not a great lead in, but at least they're playing leading up to it too. Better than probably some of the other lead-ins they had last year. But yeah, I mean, U.S. Open, this is a tough cut to make. I don't feel like we have a ton of buzz at the top of the Live field coming in, but did you get to take in any of the Live stuff this weekend?
I mean, it's funny too. When we talked about it last week, I said, hey, it's probably going to play similarly to what we saw like 5 years ago at the Houston Memorial, whatever, Houston Children's Open, what they call it now. I said the last 2 times they played it there, somebody won it at about 20 under. That's 4 rounds of golf. Probably going to be 15 under, right? And I think the winner was 15 under. It was tight at the top. Patrick Reed had a nice showing. You saw some things from the guys that you wanted. Like, I don't know if Brooks was using it as a, hey, I want to win this week and get in off a trophy. But I mean, he shot a 65 on Sunday.
Yep.
Shooting it pretty straight off the tee. I mean, some good things you saw from some of the names that are going to be here. You saw a couple of nice Sundays, so it's hard to take anything away. It's a much easier course, obviously. I guess, if there is anything you can say from a prep standpoint, and this is like so minimal compared to the actual prep of playing Muirfield, which is a very difficult course that forces you to make decisions. It forces you to, hit challenging golf shots all the time, which is a good way to lead into a US Open. Houston has Bermuda greens. They were putting on the same surface instead of going from Ohio to, the South again and hitting on these Bermudas, which that is one of the changes. I don't want to dwell too much on 2014 because it was like 10 years ago. And I think, once you get too far back, we start running into this issue. It's almost like with the NFL, like, hey, guess what? This hasn't happened since this. It's like, yeah, well, there's 17 games now, and they've changed the rules 100 ways to make the passing game more exciting. It's the same thing with the speed, the speed of the club speed, the ball, the technology, the strength of some of these players. Like, Keimer was probably hitting it like 255 off the tee when he won this. Like it's a different game now. So the differences, obviously the Bermuda greens that they put in, but other than that, it seems pretty similar, and it's going to be a goddamn test. What's up, Sean?
It's going to be a goddamn test. I think it's a great. Should have made that. It's a title of an article that hasn't been written yet. It's going to be a goddamn test. I mean, it is a stretching 7,500 plus yard par 70 that demands the full game. And that's what the US Open is. Typically we see, for the most part, the US Open is one of the harder tests of the year. We will typically see single digit scoring. Again, last time, we were here, it's been a decade, only 3 players under par. Keimer won by margin, which was pretty interesting as well. Just that's kind of the uniqueness of the course, is that you can play it in so many different ways. I think the kind of, we've already heard, like, hey, the winner, like, you're in like the final groups here coming into the weekend, you're going to be exhausted mentally, and you got to go to the Travelers because you got another Siggy right behind it. But just what's going to take to kind of work your way around here mentally is going to be exhausting too, because there's a lot of ways to skin the cat at Pinehurst. As Andy's referencing, we haven't been here for a decade. They had a renovation prior to that. If you have not done anything, you head over to the site. Ron's preview is extensive, give you all the information you need to know about Pinehurst number 2. It's fantastic, but they've ripped up all the rough. There is no thick, lush rough on this course. It is native Carolina, just hard sand, wire grass, whatever. Well, we had Barrancas last year at LACC. This year it's wiregrass is our buzzword.
Wiregrass and gorse. Get to know your like very specific agronomy. It's not like we're not gonna say wiregrass or gorse very much on any other previews this year, but yeah, the rough is, what would you describe the rough as? Like, because it's not rough, but what would you describe the area that's not the fairway here? It's just like scrub. There's sand, but it's not bunkers. It's like waste. And some of the areas, I mean, it's almost like low-lying bushes. If you've, up here where I live, I picture like juniper bushes, those, decorative low-lying bushes that people have around their houses. It's stuff like that where, hey, guess what? Like 5-inch rough sucks, but you know what else sucks? Being inside one of these bushes and taking it unplayable, or being in a spot where you're hitting it sideways. Like I think that's the biggest thing about the, what they've done to the non-fairway areas. I don't know. I hate calling it rough because it's not rough, but the past the first cut there is just, it's trouble. It's big trouble. You don't have to be like, in some of these places where, oh yeah, I mean, he hit it 40 yards off the fairway. Of course he's in a pine, a pine tree or behind a bush. Like this is like, oh, he hit it like 36 inches from the edge of the rough and he's taking it unplayable. He's hitting backwards to get back under the fairway. Like there's some pretty nasty spots here.
Yeah, I don't know. Sandy, it's like a sandy waste area. You have some of this in Carolina. We see these courses where it's not actually like Kiowa is another one that we were at a couple of years ago where it's not actually bunkering. You can ground your club. It's not actually a sand trap. It's native Carolina sand waste runoffs. You see, Steve Bamford had a list of like an actual agronomy list of all of the things that are in the waste area. Like it's like a laundry list of what the things are named. And it's like just made up, Virginia snot rot and like all these different like types of actual plants that are in there. It's pretty wild, pretty interesting.
It's like if you had a yard or a garden, it's all the stuff you would not want in there. If you lived in the like, oh, I got to get rid of
weeds. Go pick the weed.
Yeah, I got to get rid of this pinweed. Like I can't have this in my petunias. But they just, for the most part, it sounds like they were pretty hands off on letting a lot of this stuff just natively populate those areas and let it be native plants, native issues that are, I don't know, and that's going to be tricky. I don't think we can say exactly how the ball's going to fly out of some of these areas, but because we don't see this ever, but I think we can safely say it's worse than just like 3-inch bentgrass rough, 3-inch fescue.
Interesting is they planted more.
I just said 3-inch bentgrass. That would be very unique. But I'm thinking, like the bentgrass courses we have up here, where it's like, just hey, here's fescue, and it's fescue is homogeneous. It's very similar across the area of the rough. Like the rough is the rough, and the only way the rough is going to change is by growing a little, I suppose, but it's still just the same from one spot to the next. The only way the rough gets easier or tougher is when a bunch of people walk over it all weekend and then suddenly end up with areas like, whereas this is like, you're going to have unique shots all the time based on where you're landing outside of this fairway.
Yeah. And kind of a crapshoot. I mean, you could be in there in like clean as a whistle, or you could be, right behind one of these native, branches of wiregrass, etc., and have to just kind of play yourself back into the fairway. So whereas the typical US Open test is demanding length and straighten in the fairway, this is asking you to do the same thing, but like how guys get out of it is going to be very different than what happens in a typical US Open versus, having to, all right, I can, again, kind of how Valhalla was. It's like, all right, well, I still have a shot to actually go to the green here. I can take it to the middle because those greens are so soft. There's really no penalty for just kind of playing to the fat part of the green there. Doesn't seem like that's going to be an option here for a multitude of reasons, both the green complexes and the area that you're playing out of. What's interesting is it seems like, well, they said that they planted a bunch more over the last couple of years to let them grow. And if you've seen some boots on the ground stuff, like just off of the fairway, and these are wider fairways as well, just off of the fairway, it's really thick. If you actually spray it here, you might be okay. Like if you go wayward, you could just be in like the sand before the trees. I'm just interested to see, because this feels like a course shot. So many ways to play it.
It made me think of the shot from last week where Scotty missed so badly that he went across the water. Where it's like, oh, if that would have been a less of a miss, he would have been dropping. But instead, it landed across the water. It's similar to that, where it's like, yeah, there's some nasty stuff next to it, but in further spot, like you said, it's a crapshoot. There are areas that are they're pretty innocuous as far as what's growing there. There's areas where that's in the damn bush and that's unplayable. It does, and I made the comparison to that shot last week. It does kind of remind me of water, where it's like, hey, there's water here, and if you land right next to the water, it might be a little rough, and you might have trouble controlling your spin, but you're okay. But 4 feet over, and you're underwater. It's the same kind of thing. There's no water danger here, but it almost the rough almost is like the water danger, where there's there's spots where that's a full stroke penalty if you land in that spot. Whereas, 6 feet to the right, you might be okay. So it's going to come down to, kind of how you feel about this. But I haven't heard anyone, I haven't read anything, I haven't seen anything that, even dictated that Keimer did anything different outside of like, hey, guess what? It's a total driving week where there's going to be a lot of spots, guys club down, and that's fine. But we've already talked about this many, many times. Even when you're clubbing down, if the whole field clubs down, everybody's hitting a 3-wood, everyone's hitting a 5. The guys with the big club speed, with the big drives, they're going to hit their 3-woods further. Mm-hmm. And, everybody has a long iron shot in. Those guys are going to be a little closer. Maybe they're hitting a 6. It's going to be a lot different for some of these guys with the big drivers who are accurate. And I think it was from Bamford, said going in, Keimer was like 5th that week in total driving, where he wasn't the longest, he wasn't the most accurate, but he didn't veer too far in either direction, where he had he was pretty steady down the middle and long enough where he ended up with a bunch of nice shots. And then obviously anyone who watched that or anyone who's taken in some of the recaps, the guy basically crushed SG Texas wedge.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll see how that plays this week. If they let that grass get a little longer to slow that sort of stuff down. I haven't heard much from people there yet. That's something I'm going to be kind of keeping my ear to the ground on, even though I don't know how we quantify that. Like, who has stats on who's going to be good at that? There's guys who they're so good with. I mean, even just think of Tiger. And yeah, he's not going to win. And yeah, he's 100 years old, and it's sad to watch him hobble around. But every time I've watched Tiger play this year, when he misses a green, like, I'm almost excited because he has just the best hands in the world still. And, outside of him, some of the guys who are really good with their short game, that, Scotty Clark, a few other guys, it's like, it doesn't matter if you could putt it here. You're so good with your wedge from, 50 feet. Why would you? Yeah. So it'll be interesting what they do with that. There'll be some guys that do it, some guys that don't. I don't think we can take that information and do anything with it from a betting or FDFS standpoint, though.
No, because there's, depending on where you miss and where you're off, if you're against the grain, you're rolling with the grain. Are you in a popular collection area that might have, a handful of divots that you're going to have to kind of putt through versus, what is waiting for you in the back? So it depends on the miss. It's definitely not again, that's the beauty of what I think we're going to get to watch this week. It's
fun from a watching standpoint. Yes.
It's going to be fun to watch because this is the best in the world. Navigating a very difficult test, and there is not one answer to the test. And that was, regardless of where you fell into the golf architecture, Valhalla discussions and what happened there, indisputable that we had a fun leaderboard and an interesting tournament to watch at the end. It wasn't strategic golf, really, for those guys. And it's really interesting to see when you have, a handful of guys that are going to be in the mix in the end, how they are playing the same course, similar shots in different ways, and they're going to have different shots too because of what the course demands and can lead you into. So it's just going to be aesthetically pleasing, and I would expect what a US Open typically brings is the best of the best. Now, this is a course that can bring in some variance, so you might have the handful of guys that play it straight off the tee, really just try to play for pars, grind themselves out to try to get to 70 for 4 days and see where that lands them. Because that could land them in a really nice spot. Again, last time we were here, only 3 guys under par. And it seems like, based off of early reports, greens are running hot. And the temperature is going to get a little bit warmer, and they could be running even hotter, which could be interesting to see too. And I'm curious too what the USGA and how they reacted to last year's first round at LACC. I don't think they want to go out and have another 8 under on round 1 and then have the field come back on the remaining 3 days, because that's what happened, right? Everyone has feels like people have a skewed reality of what happened at LACC. Like, it was a bunch of guys in single digits at the end of the day. And sure, like Ricky and Xander went out and bull raced the place on Thursday, but they came back to the field.
And those guys weren't those guys weren't in the. Where did Ricky finish?
Well, Ricky collapsed.
Yeah, I was going to say he had
Sunday.
a horrible weekend. I can't think where Xander finished, but it was. I mean, it was just basically Wyndham and
10th.
Rory. Yeah, it was Wyndham and Rory down the stretch. That was basically all that was in it. That relief they gave Rory out of the side of the bunker.
Oh my God.
Chaps my
Scotty
ass.
was right there too. Scotty was a shot.
Yes, there you go.
Which is inevitable. Right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, different. It was the West Coast. You had the marine layer. I don't remember if we had delays because of that, but that softens things up in the morning. You're not going to have that. They can, they're watering today. It looks like, but that might be it until we get to, if they don't get any rain over the weekend and they feel like they're getting too burnt out because, it's been described as the upside down saucer plate, the UFO, the VW Beetle. Somebody said way back, trying to hit it on there because, Tiger has a quote saying, if it's burnt out, if it's dry like it looks like it's going to be, you're going to see guys playing ping pong, going back and forth because, and it's funny too because if you do that, like imagine you hit the shot that you wanted to hit, Ryan, because there was danger on the left. So not only is there danger on the left, but left is short-sighted. Left pin, left danger. So you hit right and you don't catch the green because you're not a great golfer, Ryan. You're a 10, if that.
I'm actually a 9-9. So yeah.
If I give you 3 aside, you're a 10 because I think you cheat. But so you hit it right because it's pin left, danger left, and you end up in a bad spot. You try to hit it on there. And you have 2 choices. You can either go really conservative and just try to stay on the green no matter what, even if it means a very long putt and, a danger of 3 putting, having problems. Because if you get aggressive and you go off the other side, where do you end up with your third shot is in the spot you were trying to avoid to start with. So like this ping pong sucks because not only that, but there's a bunch of places where there's holes where there's problems on both sides of the holes. So you go out of the frying pan into the fire, like that part's going to be fun. Like I don't mind the birdie fests. I don't mind, some guys just really showing off. Like it is fun to see these guys playing a course that maybe some of you have played or a course that, like, hey, even on my best day, I'm shooting like 85 there. Think about the one I've played in Kapalua. It was so long for me, and it was so hard. And then you see those guys go shoot 30 under. Sometimes that just leaves you in awe. But man, I love cheering for the course at least once or twice a year. So I'm hoping it's baked out. And yeah, Sean, I didn't care for LACC. I don't know if they'll go back. It's a weird course.
I liked it.
It was okay. I didn't care for the closing stretch. You gotta have I'm just such a big closing stretch guy.
I know people they think of Thursday and everyone just remembers Wyndham's drive on 18.
Yeah, it was actually, so it's funny too. It's like Valhalla. Everyone hates Valhalla, but it was a fun leaderboard. Same kind of thing with LACC. It was a good leaderboard. I prefer really grinded up places. So hopefully this place is tough. I don't know. Any other thoughts on the course before we talk some course or the field? The field is the field. Like really the only glaring omission is probably Jocko, and he had his chances. As much as we gave him his flowers for going to Australia and finding his way into other majors, like it's an open. You have a low enough handicap. I believe I could check his numbers. I think he qualifies to compete in any of the qualifiers, and he didn't make it. So such is life.
Yeah. Field, no add to the fields. I mean, the greens, be interested to see how they are in terms of putting. The real issue with the greens is that, as you kind of touched on, they're built to kind of repel approach shots, and you're going to have a lot of long approach shots because this is a long course. So you don't want to be in the mix and all the wiregrass garbage, but either way, you're going to have 175, 200 plus on. Ron's messing around with some of like the distributions of that, probably 55-60% of your approach shots on a spot has green complexes that are designed to kick your ball away. So going to be strategic, and even hearing some of the pressers yesterday, it's like, yeah, you know what? Like, definitely not even going for the flag. I'm barely going for the green. I'm almost going for the best miss of knowing which side I want to kind of chip on or be able to have a putt from off the green on. It's just going to be a spot where course management is absolutely crucial to make sure you can kind of work your way around this place and keeping your composure, knowing it's inevitable that you're going to get on the wrong side of some of this wire grass at some point, and so is the rest of the field. And how can you make sure that you maybe leave with a bogey and not a double or a triple, because they seem to be out here if you are willing to try to kick them around and try to be overly aggressive with some spots.
It's like what you said earlier. That was a good point. There's going to be some guys that know I don't have it in my bag to get aggressive and it's almost like horse racing. Like, hey, I'm not a front runner. I'm not a pace horse. I'm not going to go wire to wire here. I have to stalk. I have to shoot 70 every day. And then if I find myself in the top 5 on Sunday, then I can either say, well, I'm happy with the top 5. That's a lot of money, and I'm just going to keep that strategy. Or I can pull a couple more aggressive shots out of the bag and try to overtake the lead late, because there's some guys that are just going to have to do that. And speaking of horses, Nick says he got the Scotty Celtics. I don't want to jinx the Celtics because they look pretty good, but the Scotty Masters Celtics double almost cashing. He's going for the Scotty Eagles double. I'm assuming that's the Philadelphia Eagles, even though he's a foreigner, because I don't know, the West Coast Eagles, they're pretty bad. If it's AFL, I had Swans here anyway. If anyone follows Aussie rules, but yeah, Noonan, I know you're pulling for the Celtics too, so you hope to see that one come through.
I do. I do. I had some Celtics to get to the finals. Too emotionally tied. With what we do, we're in the space. Like my fandom doesn't run as strong as it used to, but my Celtics are still my squad. And let's get one on the road.
I played some 1.5. Not for game 3. That's the line. I played some Celtics minus 1.5 games. So I need them to. I mean, they just can't lose 4, or they can't lose 3 in a row, or 3 out of the next 4. 3 out of the next 3.
They look pretty damn good. I mean, if Mavs can't steal one when they shoot like 20% from 3, their Mavs are probably
they got to win two of the next 4, and I'm in good shape there. So, before we get into key stats, we are brought to you today, as you can see by the logo, where it says Jordan Spieth's Fairway Frenzy. In case you're wondering what that is, it's a product from FanDuel. It's one of the games on the FanDuel Face-Off. So it's if you're looking for a fun way to win some cash daily, you can join FanDuel Face-Off, play exclusive games like Jordan Spieth's Fairway Frenzy and NBA Swish Showdown. Enjoy. It's skill-based games. There's no in-app purchases if you don't want to, but there are some cash games. You can earn up to $250K. I was going to say $50K. I almost undersold it. $250,000 in new user rewards. Start playing for now for as low as 60 cents on the cash games. So not a big cash investment if you want to get started on this. And obviously the Jordan Spieth Fairway Frenzy is a golf game. Download FanDuel Face-Off now and start your winning streak today. The link is in the show notes. Also in the show notes is a link to Betsperts Golf and a very specific link to a very specific offer that we have, because you guys don't understand the calendar, and we understand that some people just struggle with it in their mind to pay for a yearly membership in June. We see yearly memberships, people don't want them in the summer. And I get it. It's weird, but it is 365 days. I have to pitch that now. True. It still goes to next June. So if you get a yearly membership now, it gets you next year's Masters, next year's PGA. It takes you through this one. And, we have some offers on that. If you want a discount code, obviously hit us up in the DMs. We'll give you something. But for the folks who just want to check it out for the summer, we have a quarterly membership. You're not going to find it on the regular website under the plans. There's a specific link for this promo. I've put it in the show notes. And so it's 90 days. It's 3 months. A month here costs $30. We do 90 days for $80. So you already get a little bit of a discount. But right now, just this week during the US Open, we're going to give a bigger discount on that. Basically a 2 months, 2 months price for 3 months. 3 months for the price of 2 would have been a better way to say that. So $60 is 90 days, which is a pretty good deal, I think.
Great deal.
So you'll get a full 90 days. That'll take you through the U.S. Open. That'll take you through the Open. That'll take you through the playoffs. It gets you everything else in between. So you'll get the Travelers, the 3M, the Wyndham, Detroit, John Deere. See if I can name them all. I said the playoffs already.
Mhm.
Honestly, I don't know how many more I can name. Genesis, whatever they're calling the Barbasol now. And probably it takes you a little bit into September at this point. So you probably get something of the Olympics. How did I forget the Olympics? We'll have content for that for sure. There'll be a bunch of markets up. So promo code Pinehurst, which is the name of the golf course this week. And like I said, you do have to use the specific link. It's in the show notes. $60, 90 days. Check it out. And you too can do some golf modeling. Golf modeling made easy, because we've collected all the data for you here, and we're going to build a golf model right now using the rabbit hole tool. And it kind of leads us into the key stats, because we already hit that off the top. Like, total driving is going in this model, and you will not fight me on it. Like, it has to. It's just such a key one here. And then I think we need to have discussions on what we're using for iron stuff then, because, probably something around long irons. Do we want to include something about Bermuda putting? Do we want to put some ARG stats in here, because it is so important with the high rate of missed greens? Do we want to put something on 3 putting? Do we want to put something for bogey avoidance? I think those are all kind of high on the list of things that need to be added to this model. But do you want to start with a baseline stat, just kind of how you're playing over the last year or two, or do you want to avoid that because of the live golfers?
It's a good question. I think what we typically have done is gone back in a fairly larger sample size and grabbed the difficult and long courses, because that typically is going to be some of the other major venues. I was going to grab some of the tour venues that we.
I don't hate that if we did a big sample size of that, because I mean, with all due respect to like Carlos Ortiz, or some of these other, David Puig, the golfers who are on live that have a chip chair and a chance to win this have played the other majors over the last few years. In Rahm's case, he's played other courses over the last few years. So I don't hate that if we just did like, a few years sample size of tough, long, hard to score, whatever you want to do with it. I think that's a nice baseline stat to start with.
Yeah. So we'll go difficult, very difficult scoring conditions on long and very long courses as kind of an anchor. And we can go back. We'll try 3 years. We'll see what we got. Pretty decent sample there. Gonna get you most of the stuff. Yeah, you're getting a pretty large sample of pretty much everyone in the fields. I mean, we can put in a round minimum just to kind of kick out the guys that have, play maybe 2 rounds in that sample. But in this sample, looking at courses that are difficult to score on, that are very long, you get the top of the odds board. You get Scotty, Rory, Xander, 1, 2, 3, Fitz, Rahm, Max, Victor, Tommy, Cam Smith, and Zalatoris right there, rounding out your top 10. Decky and Connors right behind them. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good anchor stat. That's already, just looking at the player list, is pretty good. So, all right. So I'm going to lean on you. I did, Ron and I did it a little different on our first look show yesterday. I had built a model late Sunday night, and for the sake of time and going through some stuff, Ron and I just kind of went through my model. I let him poke some holes, or add some stuff that he thought would be advantageous to capture some things that we want to look at. So I feel like I've had a lot of say in model building so far this week. I want to get more sense of what Andy. Have you built yours yet? Is it up on the site?
I just did I have the full data set in a data frame, and I just did an if then. If I created a variable, and if X equals Scotty Scheffler, then yes, bet. If no, then look at placements. I mean, it's such a Scotty course. We did this last week too, and I tried to fight it, but the odds just are no fun. So
I know.
Figure out who's going to win on the LPGA. I've seen at least 3 people tweet about Scotty Nelly double, which it's not the dumbest thing.
No.
You can do whatever you want with that. No, I haven't built it. I was going to wait for you.
Okay.
I like to do this one first, honestly.
Okay.
I like to, because a lot of the modeling I do with the rabbit hole, and I know everyone does it differently, a lot of what I'm doing is very specific to matchup betting. And we had some nice matchups. Of course, the one I put in the newsletter loses, but I had 2 tournament long ones in the Discord and a round by round. We went 2-0-1, had a push. The winner or the loser I had in the Discord was a certain asshole from New England that shot a million over par on the weekend. He was playing so well.
Mm-hmm.
He went like 70-69 or something, and then it was like 80-80.
Yeah,
it was against Straka. Straka didn't have a strong Sunday, but Jesus,
no one did.
Keegan really blew up. So I think he's saving it for the Travelers. He's got his home tournament coming up soon. So with that said, like I said, I do want to add total driving.
Okay.
Oh, and Nick brings up a good point. If you want to, maybe Scotty France, I think Le Bleu is the strongest side in Euros 24. I'm going to have a few parlays just because I play a lot of cricket. I'm up on cricket betting somehow. And I need to do something with those funds over at Bovada. And I love playing there because they let you parlay so much shit. Futures like this. So there will be some Scotty futures. But yeah, total driving, let's add that to the model. Probably a decent sample size on that. Again, it sucks with some of these. I don't hate going a little further back. We can look at current form and use that as like a little bit of a tiebreaker. But because we have live players, I think we're going to want to use some bigger samples this week.
Okay. We'll go 18 months, and I'm going to sample out just a little. Guys at the really low, just again.
Yeah, the issues with using a bigger sample, I think the big issue we're going to run into using like 18-month samples on this, it's going to make it look like Wyndham Clark knows how to play golf. Some of the guys who've been really rough lately, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, the challenge here is also we're comparing 22 Bryson rounds to 127 Scotty rounds. It's like,
yeah, it is tricky this week with live. And again, we're going to try to incorporate live data eventually, but it's tough.
They got to get it. They have to get it to be more consistent. So, yeah. But you've seen some live guys populating this list. Again, Sergio, 8 rounds. 101 behind Hovland over the 18 months. So, again, flawed, but we'll work with what we have here. So, total driving.
Also, if you're betting Sergio, I mean, I can send you some charities instead.
Yeah, it's not great. But hey, good for Sergio. A guy like that still out there grinding to get himself here and trying his best. And better than some other guys, right? I mean, like some guys too much ego to even go to try
to first alternate. He got in being an alternate, which everyone's like dogging on him when he didn't qualify. It's like, man, he's first alternate a month out. He's probably getting in.
Yeah. Yes. Adam Scott too. He knew he'd been here playing around for a while. He knew he was going to come on in. All right. Off the tee we did. Well, we can do more off the tee, to be honest. We did total driving though. Obviously total driving, if you're not familiar, hybrid stat where it's a combination of rank for your driving distance and your driving accuracy. So not a perfect stat, but I think to Andy's point, you have to be long and straight here. I think that can do that here. Do you want to do anything else? You want to, distance alone, good drive percentage, anything else off the tee, or just total driving?
Probably just total driving. I think a lot of the other samples we're going to run into just aren't going to be good representations of how they'll play here. There's just so few stops on tour that are anywhere near this.
What do you want to do approach-wise?
I'm looking for a guy who can confidently hit the middle. These fairways are not skinny.
No.
There's 40-yard wide landing areas. As you get, they tighten up as you go.
Yep.
But some of these guys who were able to club down and still, hit a piss missile down the middle with a 3, they're going to be in good shape because there's a lot of long irons here, and I'd much rather be 40 yards closer.
Yep.
and obviously on the short stuff.
We are looking at an approach here. Plenty of ways to do that as well. We could put some conditions on if you wanted, or just, hey, strokes gain approach over the last X rounds, months. What do you want to do?
So it's going to be long irons, but I'm fine if we just wanted to use approach, but put some filters on it. Like,
Sure.
I think something similar to we did last week. We've done this a couple times where we just go to greens and regulation and say, hey, this is a place where green and regulation percentage is going to be very low. So obviously very difficult. And, we can do difficult scoring conditions overall or just difficult green and regulation accuracy. Because, show me the guys who've gained strokes when they've played courses where it's hard to hit the greens for one reason or another. Obviously, every course is going to differ a little bit. A lot of them, it's either size, it's speed, it's, maybe the length of the course, how many shots you're having. I think, you're going to run into when you do this, when you use that filter where you're saying, show me all the rounds where it was tough to hit the greens, you're going to end up looking at a lot of rounds where you were on a longer course or a course that had dog legs that forced you into long iron shots. So I think we're kind of looking at long iron courses by doing this. And here I'm fine with overall proximity, approach, whatever you think is best if you have an argument here.
Yeah, we'll go strokes gained approach on this. Is as you mentioned, greens in reg accuracy is difficult. So I think that does capture it a little bit too. It's just interesting. It's tough. I touched on it a little bit yesterday on the first look show too. When you get into the modeling the approach ranges, it's really difficult to do so because you're, even if, excuse me, Bryson is clubbing down where he is compared to, say, a full driver from Lucas Glover or Russell Henley, the amount of like shots that they're going to have in those proximity buckets are not going to be the same. And it's really hard because you can't weight per golfer. You're really weighting to the field, and the distribution of those approach shots they're going to be different. Like they might not be certain courses, those bands are going to be tighter. Certain courses, those bands are going to be wider. And it just makes it like, I don't know. It's harder for me. So I like doing it this way better than just really honing in on approach ranges specifically.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I like that there. It's our approach one. And again, there are so many ways to capture the data here and the options through the rabbit hole to put in a ton of different stats and weigh them out and do whatever you want with it. We try to keep it pretty benign on the betting show to just kind of simplify it for you. But feel free, if you have access and you're building on models, you can go ahead and look at the expert models that are already in here. I have one in here. Matt Vicenzi will have stuff from Andy, Ron, Andy Lack soon, I'm sure. You're looking at their Pinehurst models and hey, what is someone else adding that maybe you didn't think about trying to capture? You can go in and take a look at that. I think it's a useful tool. Around the green matters a ton. We know that we have shaved runoffs. We do not have thick aprons, collars, nothing really. Even if they grow it out, it wouldn't be anything that you would consider scrambling from the rough. It is going to be shaved runoffs in some way, shape, or form. What are your thoughts on around the green?
I'm sorry, Matt was just texting me. He's putting together some. So the promo code is Pinehurst. Remember from when I talked about getting your free month by doing the quarterly? And he's like, "Is it all caps?" I'm like, "No, just the P. What are you talking about?" Like, I'm like, "Oh, the promo code." So I made him feel bad.
On the banner, it's all caps because it's
on the cap. And you know what? I think use all caps. I'm not sure it's case sensitive. If you have issues, go with all caps. Around the green, do you want to add so you have the filter on already?
I do.
Do we want to put a different filter on for this sort of thing?
We could. Well, I mean, we know they're firm and fast. We can get into. I mean, they're large.
Just fast greens.
Yeah,
they are above average on size. Fast greens and just ARG on fast greens. Get rid of. You can get rid of the tougher GIR. Yeah. Obviously, awesome. Too many filters ends up with a small sample.
Yeah, it's interesting. They are large greens, but options for pin placements and options to actually land your shot, you're seeing like an effective range I've seen quoted to like 32 to 3,500 square feet. So it's significantly smaller because you're really like, if a bunch of it's running off, it's not actually in play in terms of
it's
being
like,
able to
you
land
can
your shot
land there, but it's
You're
sideways.
not going to hold.
Like,
yeah, you're not going to hold. So yeah, we'll go. We took off that. We just have fast greens. I'm looking at scrambling from short grass over the last. We'll have to back it up a little bit. Let's go a couple of years. See if we got a decent sample. That's big sample. That's fine. We'll suss out some of these really small round samples and see what we get here at the top of this list. Oh, interesting.
Luda,
Scotty, Sam Bennett, Mac Hughes, Denny, Patrick Cantley, Adam Svensson, Hideki, Jason Day, Akshay, rounding out your top 10. All right. I like it. I haven't looked at this through the lens of fast greens, so don't hate it at all. Do scrambling, short grass, fast greens. All right, putting, scoring, last editions. What do you think?
So like I said, 3-putt avoidance, bogey avoidance.
Yeah. I think bogey avoidance.
Yeah, I think you need to avoid the disasters here more than you need to be like scoring. It's not Travelers. It's not a bentgrass birdie. I'm not that the Travelers is bad. I enjoy that tournament, but it's not a spot where somebody way down the leaderboard is going to get hot with the putter and just run away with this.
Yeah.
It is course management. It is round management. It is staying out of trouble. So I'm fine with just bogey avoidance over a nice sample.
Yeah, last 12 months, last year, we're getting a pretty good sample. It's going to tie in some of the live guys too, which I think is okay. So yeah, bogey avoidance I think is a good one too. I mean, just you gotta stay away from the big numbers this week. Just like I said, grind out those pars. Very few birdies on this course. Might be hopefully put yourself in position on those holes. Otherwise, just you're holding on for dear life and try again tomorrow. So, all right. Anything else you want to touch on? I think we're good. I mean, you can get into these par threes are really tough. Obviously, with only 2 par fives, you're going to need to manage your par fours. So I know Ron's touched on you're looking at difficult scoring conditions in par fours. We've heard and seen quotes too with these greens being very difficult to hold with proximity and apex height being advantageous too. So maybe something to look at, maybe versus modeling, but you having the ball coming in from a higher trajectory, a little bit easier to hold onto these greens. So again, something you can look at here in the miscellaneous metrics as well if you need to. So let's model this out. See what we got. Basic 5 stats, keeping it clean.
Nice and simple.
Betting show Pinehurst. Number 2. All right. You're going to do anchor wise or anything you want to mess around with or things that you probably want to have less than 20%, or we just even distribution here. What do you want to do? I mean, typically we do less on scrambling. I don't think we can do that here this week. I think it matters.
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't want to go too light on that. We didn't include any putting, which I think is fine. I don't know if people's Bermuda samples are big enough for me to get too wild with that. So I want to give total driving pretty heavy. Like that's so important. Just nothing else matters if you're short and inaccurate. Like nothing else is going to matter. It's a linked system. It's how golf works. This course gets tougher as you go through each hole, and if you give yourself a disadvantageous start by hitting a terrible tee shot every time, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if you're the best scrambler. Like, oh, good, he's gaining 5 strokes scrambling, and he's 14 over because every scramble is like his 4th shot. So got to go heavy on that. Otherwise, I think this looks fine from a percentage standpoint. Like Ryan said, if you have a membership, you can check out this model. We saved it as betting show Pinehurst number 2. It's going to be under the expert models. You can explore it fully on your own. Maybe build your own or build something better.
You can download it into a CSV. You can go over in Excel and play around with it and do all sorts of submodeling and all sorts of other stuff you want to through this as well, which is cool. All right. Not super shocking. We have 5 stats. Scotty Scheffler does not fall out of the top 3 in any of them. That makes sense. Ludwig popping very nicely, really nicely in some stats, which is good. Second in them all. Xander Schauffele 3rd, Rory McIlroy 4th. Victor Hovland feels all the way back. The full ejection.
He does kind of feel back, doesn't he?
He does. Just massive ejection, though, over the weekend, which is rough to watch. Akshay 6. Hideki 7. Patrick Cantlay 8. Corey Connors 9. Piss poor scrambling from the short grass for Corey Connors here. Cam Young, no shot in hell. Cam Young 10. Siwoo, Zal, Henley, Homa, Finau, Lowry, Keegan, Noren, Rye, Fleetwood, rounding out your top 20. Colin Morikawa, playing good golf outside, just a 21 here. Ironically, approach based off of what we did is really dragging him down. So interesting to see.
That's funny.
Yep.
Oh yeah, some hot names. People are high on Colin, current form, and just asking for a guy who can hit his irons well. Traditionally, that's his strength. He's good off the tee. Hits fairways, hits his irons well. Hatton wasn't too far out of the top. People are high on him. Again, that's a tricky one because of the stats available for him based on where he's playing. A lot of people have been high on Hideki. Haven't seen him play much. That's the biggest bugaboo for me. Just haven't seen the guy play that much golf.
Yep.
And I know you DFS guys are butthurt about him because like that, and I don't blame you. That's such a bad way to start your week if you put a bunch of money in DFS and a guy withdraws early. So I'm not sure what to do with him. I know people have been betting him at like 50, 55. I don't know that I can do it. Like I said, I'm probably going to parlay Scotty with like France to win their group at -170. Ludwig still worries me that his knee is just going to give out. I feel like if his knee wasn't torn, he would have just said, no, it's fine. Instead, he's like, hey, HIPAA in that interview. Basically claimed HIPAA, and he's not even from here, which I'm sure they have HIPAA in Nordic countries too. It's just called something else. So he concerns me, but obviously he's a great golfer, and some of the stats we've shown here flush that out. Xander has been the second best golfer in the world this year. I don't think there's any doubt to that. Even if he hadn't won, I think I would be making that claim. He is the second best golfer in the world so far this year, just based on what he's done. That has to be a huge, just like monkey off his back. He has to be playing a little bit looser. We talk about the mental part of this game and just Rory's brain breaking every time he lands in Georgia. Like that's not going to get better over the years. And truthfully, Rory not winning a major for 10 years in another place where he's played well in the past. Like that's not going to help him. Like I struggle with Rory too. I'm not so sure I can bet this guy at majors because you're going to continue to give him the price he probably deserves based on his stats. But I don't know where he is mentally at some of these places. He just doesn't seem like he's able to put the whole thing together. Victor, like you said, an ejection, but he's back with Mayo. I like that he went back to the coach that worked for him. Akshay is a big ask. That's maybe a nice top 40 bet, top 20 bet if you really like him. I don't know if I can make that jump with him. He's won on tour. He's played some pretty good golf, but he's still a little sporadic for me to think he can beat the best in the world at a place like this. Cantlay. We're using big samples. I dogged on Wyndham Clark. I should have been throwing Cantlay in that conversation. We're using large samples that are showing a big portion of last year. Patrick Cantlay, if we just went back to go back to the first screen. Just pull, your furthest left tab and just type in like Cantlay and look at the last however many rounds. Oh, I guess that one, the rabbit hole one. I mean, just look where he is.
It's been rough.
I like this too. If you want to look at one guy, you got to spell his name right. Man, it's just it's not like, hey, this is one of the best golfers. He's been He's been okay, but there's never been a like, oh, Patrick Cantlay is really looking like he could compete for this week. I've just not seen it from him. So he's not somebody I'm excited about backing ever, because I just, he has a regrettable personality. But I certainly couldn't back him here.
No. I mean, look at this. It's not great. I mean, there's nothing good here. Look at the rolling 12, 24 rounds. He's losing off the tee. He's barely gaining on approach. His ball striking, he's negative over the last 6+ starts. Losing strokes putting, which has never been a thing for him before. So like, there's no part of the game that is dialed in. Cut, T53, T29, a heritage showing, which was surprising and nice. That's it. I mean, the Genesis, T4. Let's not forget, he got out to like a massive first round lead and just gave that all back. So like, these are collapses, theoretically, barely gaining off the tee there again. So not a spot where I want you to try to find your driver coming into your week at Pinehurst too. You hopefully have that dialed in, and he does not. Not great.
Yeah. I mean, kind of ripped through a lot of the names I'm interested in or disinterested in. Who have you bet so far? I haven't even looked.
That's one and done for me.
Futures. I don't want to hear your future bets.
No, just Scotty. Scotty's, I think, going to win the golf tournament. I've bet without Scotty markets. I played Hideki without Scotty. I actually got a Hideki number on FanDuel in a without Scotty market that was better than some of the full Hideki numbers, which I liked. Same thing for Russell Henley. I played Russell Henley, who's 13th here in our model. I played Russell Henley in a without Scotty market. So essentially, you're trying to pick 1 and 2. I don't like betting 4-1. I know I took 4-1 over the weekend because I thought that was going to be gone. Sure enough, it is. We're down to 250 in some spots or whatnot. Obviously, no one wants to be betting 156 man field, one guy at 4-1 or 3-1 or whatever. But I just can't see a scenario where he's not very, very, very much in the mix. And at this point, there has to be a little bit of that old school Tiger effect. When you look on the leaderboard and you see this son of a bitch just hanging around, and you're like, gosh, I wish he was just 3 or 4 shots back. And he's just not going to be. He's Jason in Friday. He's just walking around slowly. Even if something went wrong, he's right behind you. If he's not ahead of you, for some reason, he's just lingering there for you to mess up. Will relentlessly put himself in position, and give me that guy right now. We have to go way back to find historical comps to what he's doing currently.
You went with Jason. My mind went to Rounders, hanging around.
Okay.
Hanging that kid's got alligator blood.
Yeah.
And
hanging around.
That's it. Like, you talk about like playing at earlier in the podcast, we talked about playing at a tough course with a small lead, worrying about every shot. Is this a shot that's, if I make the wrong choice here, is it the shot that's going to lose me the tournament? Like that times a million when Scotty is the guy who's 2 back, because he just doesn't seem to make the wrong choice that often.
No,
he's got the key to the maze where you're still trying to figure it out. So I like those. I've looked at a few. I'm probably going to just bet Xander top 10 again. I don't see how that doesn't make my card at every major ever. It's starting to get a little more expensive, but it's just one of those bets that his floor and ceiling are so close to each other. And it's like, 6th. I feel like he finishes somewhere between 4th and 8th. I'm going to mark that down in case that's what happens. I like Morikawa and some placement stuff like we talked about. I like Hatton and some placement stuff. Brooks's number is a little big. Depends how you feel about that. I know we didn't have the warm-up, but he is 28-1 at Chris. Probably going to have to take a swing at that just based on how he can play at these kind of courses, how he looked with his driver, how he can and will look with his driver. So probably Brooks for me. I can't get to Victor at his price. I probably can't get to Rory or Xander at their prices. Bryson is now down to 25. Close. Rahm, there's no chance I can bet him at 28. He withdrew from a tournament. He has the gout or something. He is walking around with like a foot. I had a teacher who would get the gout, and he'd come to math class, and the guy'd be wearing one shoe for like 3 days straight, just walking around with one shoe off. Like, did you see the pictures of Cowboy? Rahm, he's got like a flip flop on his foot.
Sandal and some sort of I don't know. He's drying it out.
Yeah, he's wearing a tennis shoe. He's got a trainer on his right foot, and he's a flip flop on his left. Like, that is not somebody I'm going to be looking to back at 27-1 after the performances we've seen at the first two majors. So no thanks.
No.
And then from there it gets murky. Like, have Fitzy at 50 is interesting. Like you said, Hideki at 50 is kind of interesting. And then, from there, it gets to be some bigger numbers. Hatton at 70, that's something I may consider. But
Hatton
for me,
Hatton would scare the crap out of me. He's going to get so pissed off getting behind one of those bushes.
Probably. It's a number for somebody who kind of fits his course well. So Hatton at 70, Brooks at 28. That's my card right now. I'm clicking, but I'm also going to pull up some of their odds boards and shop a little.
Big live
parlay them with Pakistan Live. They are gonna crush Canada here. Oh, it's minus 5,000. Yeah, don't do that. I'm just pulling up cricket odds. Tennis, it's like hailing in Sir Tagenbosch. We don't have tennis this morning. Maybe Stuttgart's playing, but yeah, that's the card. I think I'll have some matchups in the Discord. I'll put some matchups, hopefully a winning one in the newsletter tomorrow. I'll have an extra newsletter out today, this afternoon. We'll have plenty of content up on betspertsgolf.com. We'll have some free stuff. Ryan will have some extra articles this week, I'm sure. Just putting words in your mouth, making extra work.
That's fine.
Brian will have some plays on Underdog.
Yep.
Ron, if you do subscribe, we don't really go through all the things you get with the subscription. We focus so much on the rabbit hole and doing the modeling. But if you want, Ron puts together an article every single night after the round. The only time he doesn't is when a round doesn't complete. We don't really have odds or stats. But he puts together an article with what he's doing for Showdown the next day and what he's betting for, the next round and why and the stats and, all the splits he's using. So every night there's an article for subscribers for rounds 2, 3, and 4. If you want to check those out, that's a nice, like here, the Memorial round 3 betting. He's going to go over everything for you. The weather, he's going to have links to the interviews. This is his custom model he makes for matchups for the third round. He's looking at all those. He has his plays that he bets. This is his DFS and Showdown rankings and picks for that week or for that particular round. So it's another nice little benefit. And like we said, promo code Pinehurst, get a free month, buy 2, get 1 free. Check it out. Link in the description. Ryan, do you have anything else?
That's it. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Don't forget to take advantage of those deals. Those are good deals. Play Fairway Frenzy. We're going to have some more information on that here in the coming days too.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out. And obviously, if you don't already, hit that subscribe button. That helps. If you followed along on the YouTube, hit the link that says thumbs up. The thumbs up helps a lot. And as always, leave a comment with who you think wins. I might just give you something free if you pick the winner. I'll even let you choose Scotty. I don't care. It's 100 and whatever man field. Do it. I dare you. So we'll see you guys next week. Check out the DFS show tomorrow, 2:15 Eastern. Peace out.